Comic book events, maybe once welcomed, but now maybe not so much anymore. Guys, I'm Mike Spider Slayer. Welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. If you guys love daily comic book content, you like me helping you make decisions on what comic books to buy, I think you guys came to the right place. Why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button? So yes, guys, we're talking about events. There's a lot of them these days, and I think people, yes, are very much event fatigued. But there once was a time where we really welcomed these Marvel and DC events, right? And I would say you had to be maybe a 9-year-old me where you got to see the greatest events ever from Marvel Comics, which was maybe Secret Wars or in the Infinity Gauntlet. Maybe for DC fans, it was like Infinite Crisis, right? Like those events meant something. There was a build-up, and these days when it comes to the events, it doesn't seem like there's much build-up or there is no ramification, right? I mean, when you got Secret Wars, look what you got out of it. I mean, just one character alone, we all know, is that Black Suit Spider-Man came from Secret Wars, right? From an Infinity Gauntlet, we got all the Infinity Stones, and there was a movie that was produced out of it, but it was just a very exciting time, right? And it didn't take place in all of your comic books. It was like a 6-issue series, and that was it. Now it seems like every freaking book has an event of their own, and you kind of almost don't know where to begin, and that can be very frustrating for people, right? So what I'm going to talk about today is my least favorite events, and we're going to start off with the DC side of things. Now, when you look at DC, right? When you look at all the events over the years, I'm going to name a few of them here that I did research on. We had Crisis on Infinite Earths. We got Final Crisis, Infinite Crisis, Flashpoint, which I read, The Death of Superman, which I read, Batman Nightfall, which I read, Dark Knight's Death Metal, which I read, Identity Crisis. Did I read that one? I think so. Eclipso, The Darkness Within. I didn't read that. Batman Rest in Peace. Sinestro Corps War, which is definitely a recommend. The Final Night. Doomsday Clock, which is a good book if you read it in trade. Forever Evil, which was really a lot of fun. DC Rebirth, Armageddon 2001, and Invasion. So those are some of the events, and I didn't read even half of these. But one of the one that was not listed in this list was Convergence. Okay, did you guys ever read Convergence? This was kind of the gap between the New 52 and Rebirth. Somehow DC Comics lost its way once they launched the New 52. Now, in a previous video, I talked about how the New 52 kind of sprung me into DC Comics, and it was a new jumping on point for me. They released a lot of books. The good books were good, but as the New 52 went on and on and on, a lot of the writers lost their way. Their characters were so out of character that people were upset. People weren't reading DC books like they used to. And so DC had to course correct. And they decided, okay, well, let's come out with Convergence. Because what Convergence was about this guy by the name of Telos, who I think was a version of Brainiac. Okay, and what he did was he had all these different versions of all the DC characters you know in like these domes, and they all were in their own little adventures, right? And eventually these guys had to break out of their domes, right? So whether it was a New 52 Batman or the old Batman or the old Flash, the new Flash, they broke out of their domes. They kind of wound up working together to defeat Telos, and it brought back the original characters that we all somehow once know and love, and then boom, there comes Rebirth. I mean, this event was so convoluted and such a mess. I was like, you have got to be kidding me when I read this. And this book actually, I think, took place in every single book across the line when it came through the DC line. So if you read a Flash story, it had to do with Flash Convergence, and it was 4 issue. And it was a cookie cutter. It was like, this blah, blah, blah happened, and our heroes are here, and they have to break through of Telos control, and this and that, and the dome has got to come down to escape. And every single book was like that. And it was just absolutely god-awful, boring, so cookie cutter. A lot of people say that this was like a forced event. There was too many different characters, too many realities. There was no lack of clear direction or maybe stakes here, because all it did was kind of release some characters to go back into Rebirth. It was a confusing plot. It was just a mess. And I absolutely couldn't stand it. I think it had the Earth 2 characters in there, and back then Tom Taylor wrote it, and this was just one of those books where I really got a bad taste in my mouth when it came to comic events, because I started reading again in 2007, 2008, 2009. You guys know now when I started the channel, and there wasn't too many events, especially DC events, that I read. And I read this, and I'm like, what is this? Like, this is an horrible event. And this came out in 2015. So I was back in it for about 5-6 years pretty heavily at this point. So this was a disappointment. Thank God when they launched Rebirth, that was a pretty good initiative, and it kind of got back to some of the characters that you knew and love. Not Superman in a pair of jeans with his cape wrapped around his freaking knuckles. Yeah, do you guys remember that? Green Lantern in a trench coat, remember that? So yeah, that was definitely one of those stories that I could do without. Okay, so now we go into Marvel Comics. Okay, so this is going to be almost an obvious one for me. When you have Marvel Comics, there was a lot of events that come out, so we're going to name them in no particular order, right? We got the Secret Wars, Avengers Disassembled, Atlantis Attacks, World War Hulk, Avengers Assemble. You got the Spider-Verse books, Acts of Vengeance, Acts Judgment Day, the Infinity Gauntlet, which is top tier, right? Secret Wars, the original, was top tier. The second one wasn't bad. Secret Invasion wasn't a bad story. Civil War, which leads into the book that we're going to talk about. Age of Ultron was a freaking mind fuck, so I couldn't stand that one. Dark Reign was pretty interesting. X-Men Inferno, all new, all different Marvel. What else was there? House of M, Age of Apocalypse, Annihilation, Infinity War. Like, it just keeps going. There's Absolute Carnage, there's King in Black. Like, it keeps going. So the last really good Marvel event that I enjoyed was King in Black. And now, at any point in time, please tell me in the comment section below, what was your favorite DC event and what is your favorite Marvel events? Because there obviously was some great ones at one point, and now it just seems like it's kind of forced down our throats all the time, right? Even though this video is titled My Worst Marvel and DC Events, because we're tackling those. So, here we go. When it comes to my worst Marvel event, it's gotta go to One More Day. That's right, guys. When it comes to that story, it's gotta be probably on the list for most people out there, especially if you are a Spider-Man fan. And this event came out in 2007. So this is right when I started getting back into reading. Probably the only time the only real books I read, I think, was Civil War at the time. And then I read One More Day, because this took place right after Civil War, okay? And when I was reading Civil War, I was kind of blown away by that event. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so good. You get Spider-Man who reveals his identity to the world, and now everyone knows who he is. He's still married to Mary Jane at this time, and we wind up getting to see Aunt May. She gets severely injured. She winds up getting shot, right? And she's on her way out. And one of the things that I've always wanted in the Spider-Man comics was, you know, Mary Jane and Peter Parker stay married, and two, Aunt May can die. She doesn't really play a significant role in the series anymore. It's like, why is she there, right? And she's on her way out, and then the next thing we wind up finding out in the story is that Peter Parker wants her to live, and he's doing everything possible that he can do, and he literally makes a deal with his devil. He goes with the devil. Him and Mary Jane come to a consensus saying this is what we gotta do to save your aunt, and then boom, just like that, everything that you knew and you loved about your favorite webhead has changed. And maybe at the time you're like, wow, I can't believe that they're doing this, but it might come back. They might get back together. The love story will happen, right? Nope. We're still dealing with that today, right? So now nobody knows who Peter Parker Spider-Man is. The marriage is there. Aunt May is still alive. And ever since that moment in time, right, it's basically stagnant. You got brand new Dave out of that. You got Superior Spider-Man out of that. But nothing has really changed out of the character itself. And I would say for a lot of Spider-Man fans, that was the beginning of the end when it comes to a lot of fans of the character. So there it is. I mean, I can't put it any more simpler than that, right? A lot of people just did not like that. So a lot of people just stopped reading the book altogether. And it was just very frustrating. And a lot of people are like, this is very much editorial mandate. This is what they wanted out of the story. And yeah, and that was that. There was lots of backlash. There's still backlash to that today. And yeah, so there you have it. One more day. Worst event that I've ever read. So once again, I want to know in the comments below your least favorite DC story and your least favorite Marvel story. Leave me those comments down below. And yes, are you tired of all these events? And if they still do events, how often do you want them to be released? And do you believe in all of the tie-ins? Want to know all that stuff. Great topic, guys. Here's more content right here for you to click on. This is the other videos that I've been producing for the week. And as always, guys, remember, support your local comic shops. Keep buying, keep collecting, but always read your comics so we can have great comic conversation. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you real soon. Bye.